it pays to be the cowboy sometimes, Trying to do everything the super legit way can really work against you. But if you really, really, really want something and you work your ass off for it, you can generally get to where you want to go. And he said to me, he's like, hey man, do you want to study or should we just make these like stupid parody rap videos? And I was like, well, let's make the rap videos. And then I failed high school. I literally Googled once, like, what is the silver bullet for business success? And so I was drifting between a passion business, a cash flow business, and a business to sell. And those are such different things. One thing I've learned on my journey is that expectation is one of the greatest roads to unhappiness. I had the business valued and it was good and I should have taken that. It felt a little low and I was like, well, I'll just push it a little bit more and then
What a treat of an episode and conversation this is. Ben Forman, my friend, comes on the show. He's been deep in the production and media space for the majority of his career. This is a story of leaving value on the table, not intentionally, but accidentally. And he's really generous with his sharing around timing and missing a window and what that meant consequently, but also what he made it mean and then how he's taking that lesson and experience into the next bit of his life. Woo-woo alert. We then go into consciousness, awareness, psychedelics, and we have a really, really interesting conversation. I hope you enjoy this as much as I did. Ben Forman, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Absolute pleasure. I've been looking forward to this conversation. So doing the background research, one of the pleasures of this is that I get to know people at a level that I hadn't known them before. And we've been revolving around each other's circles for a few years. And going through your background, I've found a whole bunch of really fascinating things out, including psychedelic investment and exploration, commercial drones, electric motorcycles, amongst other things. So from the outside looking in, it could look like you're in the middle of a midlife crisis.
I've been in one of those for a long time now.
Tell me more.
Well, I mean, I think most entrepreneurs are just really curious, and so I'm just curious about many different fields, whether that's self-improvement through psychedelics and also the whole healthcare space that's in, or if it's around electrification of mobility, or production or whatever. I like better things in a better way, and it doesn't really matter where that is. I'll be curious to just play in that space.
So I'm really interested for everyone, myself included. Timing, I think, is one of the most important things. Starting a venture, investing in something, a relationship in life. So when there's you're awash with information and opportunities, how do you look at the timing opportunity around something? I've got a bit of a backstory with you there. You were promoting people getting into YouTube way back in 2011, right? When it was cat videos and people doing crazy stuff, hurting themselves, right? So how do you look at the world through a timing lens?
I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to intuition, and if you're someone like me who's constantly absorbing everything and just consuming all of this information and knowledge, you then have to just kind of turn that into a distillation of intuition, really, and just think, okay, well, all of this stuff is happening. I feel like it's heading in this direction. And sometimes you get that right and sometimes you get it really wrong. But in the case of Wrestler back in the day, I got it right, and it seems really obvious to look back now and be like, oh, of course, that's where technology went. But I love the concept of convergence. And so I love looking at different sectors and seeing how they're coming together and where that convergence lies, because convergence creates things that no one's thought about before. That's what's so exciting about it, So I think that's, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, enough. So you mentioned Wrestler. That was the name of your, I think, second business, not first. Is that correct?
It would have, it was my first business that evolved into Wrestler. So it started, I started a whole bunch of businesses.
Tell me about some of the failures that you started that didn't work out.
So, when I left university, I thought I wanted to get into film, and I went and worked on The Hobbit. And one of my jobs I looked after this really amazing guy, Jim Gennard, who was the founder of Oakley. He had sold Oakley for $2.5 billion and started a camera company called Red. And The Hobbit was the first big production to use his cameras. And so he came to New Zealand, and I was given the job of being his PA for a week. And he gave me all this amazing life advice, and essentially was like, hey, you can do whatever you want. And I was just like this young guy from the hut, upper hut. I didn't know that you could do that, And so I was like, great, okay, thanks, Jim. And so I just started these companies, and I worked out it was like $160 or something to register a company online. And then I could tell all these people that I had all these companies, And so one of them was, I thought about them a little bit, but one of them, the first one was my production company. I was doing some work with my uncle, Vincent Heringer, with his magazines, turning magazine articles into little videos. I was like, oh, this is the future of how businesses should communicate. And so I started that. And then I also I don't know how I got into it, but I got really curious about drone technology. And this was like, 15 years ago, and DJI, who now own the market, they didn't exist. It was really, it was these geeks in their garages. But what had happened was the development of motors had gone from servo motors to brushless motors, and that meant that the speed at which these drones could react to wind and stabilize themselves was really amazing. And so there was this whole new, movement happening in that space. So I started New Zealand's first commercial drone business, as you do, with a ex fighter pilot and my accountant at the time, my best friend, and then this woman, Kat Lintott, who I was trying to date.
You're courting her.
And so I was just literally trying to pull cool people together to start this cool drone company, And she was like, no, we can't date. We're starting a company together. I was like, damn it, that did not work.
Foiled.
Yeah, pipped at the post. But eventually she ended up joining Wrestler, which was great. And it was a beautiful partnership. But that drone business ended up getting just wrapped into Wrestler as well. And learned a lot along the road of that business around forging a new industry, because we worked really closely with CAA and Airways and all these regulatory bodies to try and make it as legit as possible. Meanwhile, there were these guys who were just like cowboys. They were just buying these drones and doing all the stuff that was pretty dangerous, and the laws hadn't really been established yet. And but they were getting all the amazing footage, and so they were getting the new jobs. And we're like, hey, but it's not within the bounds of thing, and nobody cared. And so it was a lesson in kind of when you're in these new spaces and these new industries, it pays to be the cowboy sometimes, Like trying to do everything the super legit way can really work against you. And that's what happened to us. We ended up being the most legit people, but with the least amount of work.
So you were doing things right, but not getting anything to do them right on.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. Yeah.
Jim, one of our researchers, dug up that he said to you, block out false perceptions, even from people you love, if you truly believe in your mission. It's a super, super compelling, ignore the noise that's on and around you and just kind of go for your mission. Anything else that stands out for you that were kind of some pills of wisdom from Jim?
Those are the main ones, was just around that you can literally, if you put your mind to it, you can achieve whatever you want. Nobody's different from anybody, Yeah, some people have obviously higher IQs and stuff like that, but if you really, really, really want something and you work your ass off for it, you can generally get to where you want to go. It's just how bad do you want it,
Yeah, I get it. Okay. So you doubled down on Wrestler. What was it about that you realized that was the right opportunity rather than pursuing the drone business or any of the other things that you were kind of
some other businesses if you're interested in the other businesses as well. Okay, so there was I started a business that got music into primary schools we would teach kids rhythm through drumsticks and rubbish bins. So it was a way to try and democratize rhythm, because normally you have to buy a whole drum kit, to learn drums, but it's actually, you can learn a lot with just some drumsticks and a rubbish bin.
There's a guy in San Francisco who has rubbish bins and plastic buckets set up, and I've seen him play probably 3 or 4 different times. He's unbelievable, so incredible. Putting pipes together is also a cool way of doing it.
Yeah, I've seen some of that as well. Yeah, that didn't work out because it turns out trying to get into primaries or trying to get into schools is so hard to sell into schools, because you have to sell into a teacher, but the teacher
has no budget.
Well, has no budget, but also has no time. You can't go and just have a meeting with a teacher because they're teaching or they're marking or they don't want to see a salesperson, or they're in the staff room. So trying to actually like break into that market, you have to break in at the high level of like Ministry of Education.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that kind of credibility. And
I'm also wondering what the economic model is. Is it the drumsticks because they've got cheap rubbish bins or free rubbish bins at the school? So it would have been the services pay, obviously. You know,
yeah, totally. Yeah. It was like the program that was teaching them and stuff like that. So had that. And then we had this other company that Kat and I, who's my wife and did the wrestler thing with me, we started this other company where we made videos for luxury hotels, and we actually toured the world making videos for these luxury hotels, and they would pay us in food, accommodation, a little bit of cash to get to the next one. It was incredible. Like we'd stay in these like $5,000 a night rooms because they wanted us to like capture their best rooms and stuff like that. But it was before influencers, and so we didn't have to show ourselves on camera or anything, which was great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
A good friend lives in Sydney, Jo Hunkin. She's the editor for Gourmet Traveller, and Famil is the name that I believe that they give those things where they get a big brand. It could be an airline, it could be a hotel chain or whatever. And every 3 to 6 months, you'd see these unbelievable photos of wherever they were in the world at that particular time, having these $100,000 cruises and staying in, absolute luxury at the top of the building and just these unbelievable trips. And it's all paid for.
Totally. I think, I mean, depends on what you're going for in life, but Contra is a great way to live life,
If you've got some resources and your bills have been paid and you've got somewhere to live permanently, what a great idea.
Totally. Got a trip to Antarctica like a year ago.
So did you?
Just doing some Contra stuff, and it was great.
Yeah, love it. So you doubled down on wrestler?
Yes.
What was the start of that journey like for you? Because you were doing something that was pretty new, right? You're in the, 2011, 2012 kind of time?
Yeah, it was pretty, in the first year, we'd go to a company and say, hey, you need to be making videos online. And they'd be like, we don't even know if like we should be making videos, There's literally people still just making pamphlets and stuff, And then, and obviously TVCs were a thing, but we're like, hey, there's this whole thing called the internet and you need to be on it. And you need to do it in a way that feels engaging with the story and all that sort of thing. And year by year, we would just, it was like they had this budget and they would just scratch a little bit away for us, And so year by year, it got bigger and bigger until, there was a point where we're maybe year 5 into it and we're like, okay, we're now kind of like have a seat at the table. We're getting the briefs that normally the big agencies would get and we're on par sort of thing, And instead of like just an add-on, it was a whole kind of its own separate thing. And then we got to this point, this crossroads where we were a bit of both because we were a production company making all of the content ourselves, but we also ended up doing a lot of the strategy and creative as well. And generally in the ad world, you have production houses and creative agencies, and they were pretty siloed. And we were doing both, and we thought, well, we can either go all in on the production thing, or we can try and do the hybrid model. And that was at the same time that I was doing some work with Tim Brown from Allbirds, and he was like, we'd helped launch his original shoe, which was called To Be. And then he came back to me a year later. That had gone really successfully. He came back and said, hey, we're gonna do this again, but it's gonna be under the brand Allbirds. Do you want to help us launch it? I was like, great. We're gonna rebrand we're gonna call ourselves Wrestler. We're gonna go as this like agency thing. Perfect. And so helped launch Allbirds. That obviously went really well. And then we ended up helping launch a bunch of New York-based startups in the D2C space that came out of the VC fund that originally funded them, which was Lira Hippo. And yeah, that was super fun. So Kat and I are heading off to New York and launching like organic tampons and organic dog food delivery services and all sorts of random stuff in New York.
Another thing from the researcher is you were parodying rap videos at some stage.
Yeah, that's how I got into the space of video, because in my teens I was really into music and I was in like pop punk bands and all that sort of fun stuff. And
what were you, frontman or?
Yep. And then my friend and I, when it came to the like 7th form, your final year of exams, it was the study period, and I didn't realize, but he was like a low-key genius, and so he didn't need to study. And he said to me, he's like, "Hey man, do you want to study, or should we just make these like stupid parody rap videos?" And I was like, "What? Let's make the rap videos." And so like we had heaps of fun, and I was mildly famous in Upper Hutt for all of 3 months. But he got excellence in all of the exams, and then I failed high school. And so I was like, what the fuck, man? So yeah, and also ironically failed photography, which was funny. But yeah, I've never really been good with traditional education. But anyway, that's how I got into the video stuff, because these rap videos are doing okay, and then this production company saw us, or saw what we were doing, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to take these to the next level?" And we're like, "Okay." And so they introduced us to all of these crew members who were working on The Hobbit. And so we had these like really hardcore DOPs and lighting guys and everything, because they just wanted to do something fun, because like working on these huge blockbuster things is not actually that fun. And so it's just a horrible machine.
Right. So you're just a tiny little cog. Yeah. Okay.
And they work you to the bone, you know? That's why I left it pretty quickly as well. I was just like, and the ego in there is out of control. There's all this weird hierarchy, and it's not fun.
Unexpected from the outside.
Really?
No, I guess some of the ego stuff, absolutely. But no, the fact that it's not fun, other than the bit of the output probably that you get at the very end of it, I'd imagine that's where the satisfaction comes, and maybe if you win an award.
Yeah, I think if you're one of the key players in that machine, and you're getting to make creative decisions, it could be fun. But most people are just like, again, a tiny cog in a massive machine that get worked to the bone, you know?
Mm-hmm. So doing a lot of work out of the States, and then you grew a successful commercial enterprise grade business as well in New Zealand. And so one of the things is that you were successful at securing the government contract, all of government. So as a small kind of local agency, what were some of the moves that you made to enable yourself to be taken seriously by both government and by enterprise?
I mean, I don't know if we ever were taken fully seriously, you know. I think what we offered to a lot of government departments early on was this wild card, or this sense of, here's some people who are doing things a bit differently, and whether that's they're doing it cheaper or they're just bringing in a fresh perspective, you know. And so that always kind of got us in the room to pitch. But often we would lose the pitch because people would be like, "We love your idea, but we just can't take the risk, because you've got an agency here that has 100 people. They've been in the space for decades. They're just trusted. They're 3 times the price, and they'll probably give you an idea that's pretty standard, you know, but like no one's going to get fired over choosing them, you know. Whereas with us, it's like there's potential there for things to go wrong. So we definitely always had to battle that kind of. It was a blessing and a curse, really, that identity, you know. And part of the sale, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, will be as part of that, like trying to really step into like a more mature version of ourselves, where we bolster our capabilities so that we can be trusted, you know. I think you could have trusted us earlier, but it's just, you know,
right.
It's that credibility piece.
Yeah. There's a truism in the tech industry, which is you don't get fired for buying IBM, as came about in the 1980s when there was this risk kind of factor. And unfortunately, it still persists in certain places. The whole government thing, in commercial enterprise, you buy someone based upon, make me look good when I engage with you. And in government, it's don't make me look bad as the mindset to a certain extent.
Yeah. And I think on that note, that's kind of how we've always approached the work that we've done, is how can we just do this really, really well and make sure that the client ends up looking amazing within their team and within their organization, and that the organization looks amazing to, the wider context of government and everything like that, and just trying to do a great job. I for the first maybe 5 years of business, I was always searching for the silver bullet of success. I literally Googled once, like, what is the silver bullet for like business success?
Did you remember the answer?
Well, no, there was nothing there.
No. A blank screen,
it
literally.
Was pretty much just
just a laughing emoji. Yeah.
So then I went away. I was like, how can I simplify this so that it's something that works for me? And I came up with this business strategy, which is really simple. It's 3 steps. It's build the brand, do the work, tell the story. And I think it's a service business, like business strategy, but it doesn't have to be that much more complicated than that. You build a good brand that people recognize and are interested in, then you do the work with integrity and quality and on time and on budget. And then you tell the story and let people know what you did and why it was awesome. And then that helps build the brand. And hey, presto, you're back to, and it builds a flywheel. And over time, it just gains momentum. And the core driver in that, I think, is the energy of the founders to just keep, making that flywheel spin.
Yeah, I totally agree. So you mentioned that at the start, you were pretty early innovators in the space and you're relying upon people taking a bit of a risk in having a go with this approach, videos on the internet, so to speak. And also you had the backdrop, I'm imagining, of quite expensive kit back in those days. So the camera, the hardware would have been relatively expensive and the talent base relatively small. But in the 13 or so years that you owned that business, there was quite a lot of tectonic shifts going on, like the price of hardware almost dropped through the floor, right? And then there was no doubt a whole lot of Me Too competitors that kind of popped up. Did you see a massive change in the amount of competition and how people were competing with you over time?
Yes and no. I always thought that every man and his dog was my competitor, and I've never thought of myself as being unique. Like, again, I'm a kid from Upper Heart. It's not like I failed high school. I wasn't given any special skills or anything, and so I was like, well, there's nothing stopping anyone else doing this, and I love it. So why wouldn't other people do it? Again, it took me about probably 5 or 6 years to realize, like, oh, no one's actually like coming for me, And in Wellington, bizarrely, it is a kind of tricky market, and it has been on a relatively steady decline for, probably 15 years or so. So there hasn't been a huge amount of people trying to jump in there and compete. And so we've held a pretty strong kind of like leadership in that space in the market, which I would say is mid-tier. You've got the like top tier, which is obviously the film production, that sort of thing. You've got lower tier, which is the kind of one-man bands or the maybe couple of people, and then we sat in the middle, which was that high production, good solid team, and affordable, really great quality, but not at that kind of like super crazy cinematic level where you've got every now and then we'd stretch up to there, like we'd do like, I think our biggest shoot had like 50 people on set, it was pretty big. But generally we'd stick around the kind of 5 to 10 people on set sort of thing.
Yeah. After your original misstep with the lovely cat, you managed to convince her that you should be dating. And by then you're in business together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been together for, dozen, even slightly longer. You've got a family together now. What are some things that you do to honour the relationship and keep it separate and distinct from the business? Because that's a tricky path to tread, right? Is to have both of those things together with your significant other.
What's funny is, so literally like the same week, could have been day that I met Kat, I registered Wrestler. And then she joined, I think it was about 5 years into it. And we had been working together in those other companies. And so we knew we were working together. She had been at a virtual reality startup. And so she had really been in this world of startups and tech and loved it and brought that flavor into the business. And so she created a whole new interactive division within Wrestler, which was really cool. And we were leaders in virtual and augmented reality when that was a thing. And we absolutely loved working together. And when we shut that interactive part of the business down 2 years ago and Kat stepped out of Wrestler, it was actually like our relationship suffered because of that, because we're so used to being in each other's everyday rhythm, like working next to each other, knowing where we're at. We're really great communicators, and we just love it. And so now when we're not working together day to day, we sometimes forget that. And so we don't, we have these kind of like expectations of each other, and then the person will be like, hey, are you doing that thing? It's like, yeah, get off my back, I'm doing that thing. Because like in the past we would have just seen them do that thing, and so you don't have to ask those questions or anything, you know. So we've found actually most of the tension in our relationship has only come after not working together.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So having a business together created connection. And here was me with my stance, which is that it's a risk and there's opportunity for friction. And it created connection. That's a totally different framing for me.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I love
It's
it.
like we love building stuff together.
Yeah. How have you done that now that you don't have the business anymore?
Well, we're scheming what we can do next.
Yeah, okay, cool. We'll get to that. Okay. So at what stage did you start to ponder the notion of selling Wrestler?
About 4 years. Well, I'd kind of always talked about it, but never knew when the time was to like push go on it. And I never set out when I first started the business. I never set out to build a company to sell. And I've had this realization post selling the business, which I can go into in a bit, about kind of having a clear intention of the business you're building, because it can get really murky. But I think where I really was like, okay, let's do this, was 3 years ago. And had I have properly pushed go then, it would be a very different situation to where we ended up now, which is, yeah. So I think when to go into that point that I was just talking about the intention of your business, I think when I first started Wrestler, it was about just doing what I loved. It was a passion thing. You know, I loved making content. I was like, wow, I can get paid for this. This is amazing. And then as time went on, I started making good money, and people are like, oh, this is a really good business, Ben. And I was like, great. I can have a business that's really, you know, cash flow positive and support this great lifestyle. As the cash kept coming, people went, this is worth something, Ben. You could sell this. I went, really? Okay. Never once did I really like intentionally change gear into what mode of a business I was in. And so I was drifting between a passion business, a cash flow business, and a business to sell. And those are such different things. And I think going into my next business, having real intention and clarity of what I'm going in for the long haul is super important. I think there's a fourth tier of business, which I didn't go near, which is kind of like a generational or like a business, a large scale enterprise business, you know. That's obviously a very clear intention. Well, there's probably a whole bunch more, but for me, those are the real clear ones.
I'll just add something to that while you're pondering the next bit of the conversation. I think about it as, what type of business do you want? And so you're a side hustle, which is something that you do on the weekends and at nighttime, and it's just literally for cash flow. You're a solopreneur, which is you sell your time for money. Typically, you might have a program or something else that you're selling, but you probably don't have any staff and none of the issues that surround that as well. You're a owner, which means that you've probably got 4 to 5 staff. You're the middle of the wagon wheel. Pull you out of that business, it'll collapse, right? So you've basically bought yourself a job. It's probably a well-paying job, but you're still in that place. Next level is you're an operator. Which means you think about the business from a more structural, strategic perspective. You've probably got some team leaders, maybe even some managers in place. The next level and the final level is the entrepreneur. And these are the names that I've just given these things. Some of them are accepted colloquially. And at the entrepreneur stage, you're thinking about into, exit, structure, governance, value, all of the things that entail something of real demonstrable value, and not having to have yourself there on a day-to-day basis. So that's how I think about those 5 levels of ownership.
Yeah.
So you've got yours. Thank you. And so so you were flicking between those different modes within Wrestler.
Yeah.
And so 4 years ago, you went, maybe this is the right time to sell this thing. And were you like, what have we got?
Well, the thing is, things were going really well. Like, I wasn't really in the business that much. I had a team of about 20. Yeah. And I started a whole nother business and raised money, and everything was great. So the market was great, you know.
This is 2021. We're all just spending our COVID money.
Yeah, exactly. And then I had some good offers, you know. I had the business valued, and it was like it was good, and I should have taken that. But you always think when times are good that they're going to keep being good. And you're like, oh, well, like, why? It felt a little low. And I was like, well, I'll just push it a little bit more, and then we'll get to a stage that will reach this kind of multiplier that I'm after. And then the market shifted. And then, in the advertising world, there's always ups and downs. And so you might have one month that just, for some reason, there's a drought. And you're just like, oh, it was a bad month. And you'll make it back in the next two or whatever. So I remember it was October of 2022, I think. And it was a down month. I was like, that's all right. It's fine. It's weird for October to be a down month. That's normally a really good month. But it'll be fine. And then November was a down month. So I was like, oh, that's like not great because we're coming into Christmas and things slow down, obviously January, Feb. And then like December was a bad month. And then it just kept going. And then we came into 23 and 20, and it just kept going. And then, and I was of this mind of, okay, I'll just get through this little down period, get the numbers back up, and then I'll be able to like get that good multiplier. But the numbers just kept going down. And so, it was a very big lesson. And like, when you feel that little like thing of maybe it's time to get out, you're probably already too late. You probably already should have started the process, And I think one of my massive lessons in this whole journey of business, and is kind of, we'll talk about in a bit where I'm heading with my entrepreneurialism, I guess you could say, is this idea of tapping into your intuition and your energy and reading. Like your brain is just a very small part of your thinking process, and if we can tap into the holistic being, the supercomputer of our gut and of our mind and of our heart, then we can make a lot better decisions that are more aligned with our kind of what we actually desire in life, because there's this idea that we all cling to of success, but most of the time it's been defined by someone else.
It's financial success typically as well.
Exactly. And so you get there and it's just like, it's completely hollow. Whereas individual, ideas of success that's what we should be creating for ourselves and aiming for that. And that might look like it has a financial aspect to it, but it might look like a whole bunch of other things as well. And so, being able to drop into that intuition and listen to it and hear it, I think creates just an abundantly a life of more joy and clarity. And, when people are in their center and when they're in themselves, you can tell, it's like they have this resonance to them that you're just like, oh, wow, I want to be like you, And so how can people kind of like find that and then make, business decisions from that, and a whole bunch of other, leadership decisions and financial decisions and all that sort of thing.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm keen to unpack that. We'll come back to it in a second. So just rounding out the exit story. So during 23, things were on the downward trend. Had you gone back to people that had expressed interest in the first place, or did you have to go out to market to try and find someone that was interested?
Well, I kind of took it off the market because I was like, I need to get it back to a better point, And so for 23 and the first half of 24, I was just trying to fix it or hope that the market was going to turn around. It also didn't help that a huge amount of our work was in government, and then the new government came in and they slashed all spending. And so it was like a double whammy, So I was like, okay, well, maybe the government will start spending again after they've had this first cull period. It didn't happen. And so it got to the point where I was just like, I'm drained, like I don't have I looked to the future and I was like, well, if I want to get this back to where I had it, I have to, to get an average multiple, like a good multiplier of a good kind of average EBITDA or something, I'm going to have to do this for another
3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years. And I don't know, the market, at this rate, the market's just going to stay shit for a while. And I was like, got to cut my losses. Tap into that intuition and instead of just chasing this exit number, be like, well, what do I actually want in life? And it's to do work that I feel inspired by and feel full of joy. And it's not that I don't feel that work is inspiring, but I've just done it for too long. I've done it for 14 years, It's like every brief that comes in is a different version of a brief I've done before.
Yeah, you're in your 30s, right? So that's, most of your professional working life was consumed by doing that.
All of it. Yeah.
All of it. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. And so you went back to the table, found a willing buyer, Rodeo.
UFO Rodeo.
UFO Rodeo.
Yeah.
Tell me about that name, by the way.
Yeah, so Leon and Michelle, who own it, they're great. So Augusto is what a lot of people know, like as the agency arm of it, but they have a whole bunch of other companies as well that are in the entertainment space and really successful companies. Like Dark Doris makes documentary films. You might know Chasing Great, the film about Richie McCaw, or their most recent one, Prime Minister, which is the film that just won the Audience Choice Awards at Sundance for the documentary about Jacinda Ardern. And they have an events company, did like the world's largest haka. They have a company called Corner Store, which does social content and that sort of thing. And then, Augusta, which is the main kind of agency creative part of the operation. Leon hates the word group. And so he also has this podcast called Cryptid Factor, which is this really like they explore strange things like UFOs and all that sort of
like
stuff.
Like Ripley's Believe It or Not kind of thing?
Kind of, yeah. And it's with Reese Darby and this other guy, but it's really absurd and funny. But they were interviewing this guy once, this like guy from the south, and they're talking about UFOs and stuff. And the guy was like, "This ain't my first UFO rodeo." And Leon was like, "Yes, one day I will use that term." And so when he wanted to create this group, he was like, "I'm going to call it the UFO Rodeo."
Love it.
And in the creative sector, you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
So you slotted in as the production.
So we're now the kind of like high-end production of that, and also the Wellington contingent, essentially. So it was a really good fit. And culturally amazing. Like Leon and Michelle are literally just cat and I in 10 years, like they're super wacky and out there, but also really values based and super kind. And the culture of the business is a perfect alignment. So when our teams came together, it was just they just started on projects straight away, and it was really seamless. It was beautiful.
Thanks for listening, and apologies for the interruption. I wanted to share with you that this show is one that we, the team, collectively pour a lot of effort into. There's resources that are involved. We have producers, promoters, and wonderful guests that share their time with us so that you may learn and possibly, hopefully, make some impact on the world as a result of that learning. The only thing I ask of you is go and check out my website. There's a diagnostic tool on there. There's a free downloadable chapter of my upcoming book, remarkably called 2 Commas. And there is some other fascinating resources that I'm not going to tell you about because you need to go to the website to check them out. So thanks for listening, and please continue enjoying the show. No, we're not, I think. Is that right? A pretty quick exit from the building for you to leave operationally?
Yeah, so it's an interesting kind of deal where I'm still working with them, but it's not like there's no golden handcuffs or anything. The deal's just based on I get a profit. We get a profit share essentially going forward, and so if I can help bring in more profit and revenue into the business, then I get a cut of that. And if I don't, I don't.
Yeah.
And so it means that I'm kind of in some ways like an ambassador to the brand, which works well because I have a lot of connections, and obviously still like really that whole world is so natural to me, so when I talk to people and I love connecting with CEOs and entrepreneurs and all that sort of thing, it's natural for my mind to be like, you could create this story, or you need to do this, and and then I can just kind of like feed them into this beautiful machine of UFO Rodeo.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. I had Simon Thurlow in the studio a couple of days ago, and he had a deal which had some similarities to it. He managed to 4x the intended payout at the back end of it through just tireless focus on driving the top line of this business.
Yeah.
So the story was we are growing, and the curve is, kind of at the start, and that played out to be the case, but even more than that. So there's an opportunity to kind of, markedly increase the deal.
100%. And so it is an interesting one. I mean, it obviously de-risks it massively for the purchaser, which is kind of was where we were at with just like, we just need someone to really take this, and the market was not great. And so everyone was like, hey, not really the time. And we're like, okay, well, let's just make this easy, but with the potential of actually, we can make this what we want it to be, so it could turn out great. But I'm also from a one thing I've learned on my journey is that expectation is one of the greatest like roads to unhappiness. And so from a mindset point of view, I've actually set the bar as zero. Like I'm like, if I don't get any money from it, I'm completely fine with that, because otherwise you're living in a world of misery, counting numbers and looking at every job that comes through and constantly like, watching over them like a hawk. And so I'd much rather just like any money that comes through, I'm like, great.
It's a bonus. Yeah. I love that attitude. So for clarity's sakes for the audience, the thrust of the conversation is the multi-millions of dollars that could have been, but did not necessarily end up being the case, but may still possibly be.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the...
And then also on that note, what I really have a strong intention about investing that money really wisely instead of just spending it. And so my mindset is also whatever money I do have has the capacity to grow exponentially as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I love the sense of calm and detachment you have around it. We caught up last in here in this office maybe about a year ago, and I think you're in the depths of trying to navigate your way through and out of it. And there was a lot of angst that you were carrying at that stage, and rightly so, right? Long time in the business, you didn't have clarity on how you could move your way through and out of that. Plus also you didn't have the certainty on who the right partner to take that business on was, right? So you've got a real peace about it. The low expectations, that's such a great way to live life, but such a bit of conditioning that we're just not given. And then you've got that paradox of one of the ways that you lead a happy life is not just through, absolute gratitude for every single little thing that you have, but they do know that having something to look forward to does give you a rich existence as well, because there's something that's out there on the horizon, rather than just being grateful for the fact that I'm breathing oxygen and my hair's still in my head and, all those sorts of things that can get a little bit twee over time. So is there some practices you have around that to kind of, manage expectations closely?
Yeah, well, I think with everything in life, it's a balance, right? Like too much of anything, too much of just zenness is just non-existent.
Boring, actually.
It's so boring, like, and I, as I went on because in conjunction with my business journey, I've gone on this really beautiful wellness journey. And one of the biggest fears I had as I stepped into that and I really felt this pull into it was, I really don't want to become this kind of like yogi meditating on a hill all the time and, and just like this hippie who has no connection to like the real world. And on this journey, what I've discovered is that there is a beautiful harmony between being and doing. And the more that you actually invest in your being, in terms of your rest, in terms of your presence and stillness, it gives you so much more energy for your doing, so much more clarity, so much more intention, so much more gratitude. And so that's like the work I'm doing now, is trying to help people to really find the harmony within that being and doing.
How do we do that?
It's really simple, to be honest, and it's stuff that we should have been taught like when we were young. It's everybody's different, and the new consultancy that I've started is called Ongoing Theory, because essentially all we have are these theories. What works for you is completely different to what works for me. My mission with the business is to help both people and organizations find alignment of mind, body, and spirit. And I believe that a business has a mind, body, and spirit as well. You can think of the mind being its processes and systems, its body being the physical things that it has to do, and the spirit being its culture and kind of
its values.
Yeah. And so a company can be in alignment and be thriving, or it can be out of alignment. And the same way with the human. And so all we have for both of these things are a whole bunch of theories to bring us back into alignment. And so for an individual, we look at the mind, body, spirit. We look at our mind. Awareness is obviously the superpower, which brings so much clarity to our life. And that just comes through noticing, just taking a step back and observing how we're living, how we're interacting with others. Just having a curiosity about like what's going on in this thing. With the body, there's three core things that people don't give enough attention to. Sleep is the number one thing. Like sleep hygiene is just has such a flow-on effect. Nutrition, just talk for ages about that, but nutrition, people just think that food just gives you energy, but it's, if you think about I always like to think about how we can take like a Panadol or something, and it's this tiny little pill, and it has this immense impact on our body. We'll eat a whole plate of food and not think that that will have this huge impact on our body, And it's like food is medicine. And so whatever we're putting in our body has not only a energetic effect, but it has like a emotional impact, I discovered recently cheese makes me sad. And that's through, I really kind of like...
All cheese?
Huh?
All cheese or just specific types?
I'm in the phase of investigating this. The thing that really showed it to me was like this really delicious brie that I had. It was quite creamy.
Oh, I love cheese.
I love cheese too.
Here's a theory for you. I wonder, you know how we have heavily pasteurized cheese in New Zealand because of our regulations. If you get French cheese, a lot of it's non-pasteurized. And so I wonder if it could be the processing that goes on with New Zealand cheese. We've got delicious cheese largely, but we're missing out on this kind of other world of incredible cheese.
Mm-hmm.
Something to ponder.
Could be. And I've known for a while that my body doesn't particularly digest it that well, but what I noticed after really observing it was that it actually was having this huge emotional impact as well, and I'd have this kind of cheese hangover, essentially, of sadness. And I was like, well, I'm happy to put up with the bodily discomfort, but I'm not actually comfortable putting up with this emotional just like deregulation. Anyway, so nutrition's massive. Mobility is the other one that is just so overlooked. And, obviously mobility is important for just general health, but a lot of people don't understand that stress, anxiety, all of this tension is held in our fascia, all of the connective tissue in our body. And if we're not moving our bodies, it's all getting caught up in that. And that energy just calcifies over time. And so your stress is literally becoming part of you. And, we know this about things like cancer and stuff like that, that it can actually be caused by stress in the body. And so if you're in a high, octane business and you've got all this stress coming at you every day and you're not releasing that, then that's going to cause a huge amount of downstream issues, And then the last one I'll quickly go on is spirit. And this is not in the esoteric realms of faith or anything like that. It's literally connection and meaning. If you don't have those things in life, everything feels hollow, and that's why a lot of people, successful people, get to this exit or something, and it's been what they're chasing for their whole life, and they get there and it's completely hollow because they don't actually have meaning in their work. There's nothing like that's tied to that's actually unique to them or how they see the world, and so it's just hollow, and then you see everything with that lens.
Yes. I quote Mark Twain quite a lot. My favorite of his is the two greatest days of a man's life are the day he was born and then the day he figures out why. And in my personal instance, I spent, and that's purpose, right? The reason that you put on this planet. In my personal instance, I had made it mean financial fulfillment, financial success for the first phase of my life. And I set a marker and I achieved it at a certain age. I was in my early 40s. And I expected to feel unbelievably elated for an indeterminate period of time. I was rapt for a couple of weeks. I was really happy for a couple of weeks after the first exit, and I'd invested wisely in some things. So a lot of income producing assets. And then I drifted into this space of boohoo, poor me, but I drifted into this space of I was rudderless. I was just directionless because I hadn't reconnected with what any meaningful, true purpose was and is. And what I've come to understand is that you can pursue and continue to pursue the almighty dollar, and those that reach the very top of the stack, billionaires and people in the decamillionaire category, 100 million plus, they have prioritized the dollar above probably almost everything else. Definitely relationships in their life because the money is the most important thing. Probably health as well. You probably don't see too many fit, ripped billionaires around. Not that being ripped is the be all and end all, but you probably don't see many of those folk. Certainly not equity and fairness because you will have had to stamp on some people to get to that level. Billionaires are universally known as being ruthless people. They have to be because they're always prioritizing their own needs over other people. And what I've come to, and it sounds like you might be the case as well, is that there is I think for all of us as individuals, one of the core reasons for us being here is to find some way to be of service to others, either to other human beings or to other species. And that could be fauna or it could be flora, trees, nature or animals of some way, shape or form. especially given the destruction that we've wrought upon them over the last few years. So where you've landed now is that you're kind of moving right into that service space. Is that right?
Yeah. I want to. I've helped grow businesses for the last decade and a bit, and I still want to help grow businesses, but from kind of like more of the inside. Yeah, the heart space. And same with individuals.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if it's even going to work, because that's another reason that the company's called Ongoing Theory, because the business itself is an ongoing theory. And again, I'm using this idea of detachment to go into it with a real lens of experimentation and just be like, okay, well, let's just try some stuff and see where it goes. And if it doesn't go where I want it to go or where I'm thinking it will go, I can either pivot or I can just say, okay, well, that was an interesting experiment, and learn and keep going, because what I've already discovered, I've been in market for only like 6 weeks, but the people who are resonating with me, most of them already know this stuff. They know the tools, they understand the language, they know the power of, prioritizing these things. The people who really, really need it, the people who are almost burnt out, the people who are like functioning but not really living, they don't know they need embodiment because they've never experienced embodiment. How do you know? That word means nothing to you, And so how do you communicate these like what feel like esoteric concepts to people who really need them but don't know they need them? And I don't know if I can be fucked educating everybody on this, because I've been selling for like 14 years and I'm like, I don't know if I want to be selling anymore. I want to do the work,
I see selling as just influence. I also see leadership as just influence. So, maybe your role is to influence others into some form of positive change so that they can create a better self, but then also a better environment for themselves, which will kind of have many flow-on ripple effects. I wanted to pick up on a point that you made there. Detachment, I love that as a word. It's actually quite dissimilar to having low or no expectations. Those two things are directly related. What we both know about business, though, Ben, is that it won't go anywhere without intention. And so how are you rationalizing, resolving that paradox, that conflict that sits there?
Yeah. So I love, intention is one of my favorite words. I have this little line, intention is the rudder of energy. Like energy is flowing through us, whether we like it or not, And if you do those things, like have a good sleep, eat well, you're going to have a lot of energy every day, right? And so where are you putting it? And the intention you set is so powerful, because like even on a like subconscious level, if you just say, I'm going to do this, this is where the whole thing of manifestation comes from. Everything will conspire to gently guide you in that direction, And so it's not like I'm going into this business and going, well, it might not work, like I'm not attached. Like I'm going like, I'm going to fucking give this a go. But if it doesn't, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I'm going to give it the best I can with this energy I have, and I'm going to wake up every morning and I feel excited about it. And that's the intention I'm going in with it, And the people that I talk to, I'm going to be lit up. And, but if I'm talking to people and I'm like, you're not my market, you're not getting it, I'm not going to be like, fuck, I put all this energy into that. I'll be like, okay, what do you think? And I'll pivot, and that's kind of the detachment I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. There's a lot that's tied up in here, and it's the kind of the world that you've been living in for I don't know how long. You and I are a little bit woo-woo. It's probably not something that's widely known about me, certainly. I don't know. Do people know you as being a woo-woo guy?
I think they do now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Especially more so now. Yeah. How do the psychedelics tie up in that?
So I was thinking on the drive over here, you are a pivotal part of my whole transformational journey, which you don't know.
I don't.
Yeah, because years ago, it would have been about 7 years ago, I was on LinkedIn and I saw you made a post about Summit.
Yeah.
And you're like, I hate conferences, but this is the one to go to. And I was like, I'm curious. And I asked you about it and you told me. And then the next year I went. And at Summit, I was not into the world of wellness or anything like that. I was very much a pretty standard businessy dude living in my head, hadn't cried in a decade, didn't understand why people would dance. Like literally, like I was like, what's the KPIs on dance, Like, Oh no, that gave us ROI. So, and so I went to this conference, and I went to this, Kat was like, she was a bit more hippy dippy than me at this stage. And she's like, I want to go to this breathwork meditation thing. And I was like, okay, I'll come along. Always been really open-minded. Lay down downtown LA in this tent of like 200 people at midnight, do this crazy breathing exercise for like half an hour, went into this super transcendental state. And I'd never tried any psychedelics at this point. I'd heard about them a lot, through people like Tim Ferriss and stuff like that. So I've been curious. Had this, what felt like a psychedelic experience purely through breath. Came out of that, was like, whoa, that was a lot. Stepped outside, met this guy called like Brad Thor or something like that. It was this like American dude in his 60s who did a lot of psychedelics, and we got chatting. And he was like, oh, I've got some psychedelics with me if you'd like to try some. And I was like, it seems like the time and place to try. And so I tried a little bit of this liquid LSD, and it just had this profound impact on my mind. And I saw this level of complexity and pattern recognition that I'd never even comprehended before. And it shifted my view of how this world is made up, essentially. The next morning, I got invited to this thing called ecstatic dance, and which is where essentially they guide you through this dance experience. And again, I was like, I do not like dance. I don't get it. But Kat was like, oh, just come with me. But because I'd been really kind of softened up the night before with this breathwork and this LSD, I leaned into this dance experience, and it completely changed my relationship with my body, and I started to feel my body again. I was like, oh, that's right. Like when you're a child, you're so connected to your body, It's like, I love watching my son eat food. He'll eat a pickle and his whole body will do a dance, Like he's so embodied, but we just somehow like lose that over time. And so I regained this connection to my body, and I came home and I started doing breath work all the time, and I would reach these kind of like what felt like psychedelic states purely through breath, and have these beautiful awakenings through it, That was the only way I can describe it. These amazing downloads of what felt like kind of pure consciousness speaking to me. And so that then led me on this whole path of exploring kind of the therapeutic benefits of psychedelics, and mainly with psilocybin, or mushrooms as people call them, and doing a lot of kind of like therapeutic work. And that would look like me literally by myself in a room with some headphones and some, carefully curated music, and setting an intention for the journey and maybe a question, and then just going deep on that question and seeing where it takes me. And if you do that, you'll find some answers,
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And you mentioned before the power of awareness. And one of the things that I've reflected upon with my own different and varied journeys that I've had is that I thought in my 30s that I had a reasonable degree of self-awareness. I didn't at all. I just kind of knew a little bit about how the world worked. Having come from a decade or so in executive search, I interviewed a lot of people. And so consequently, I was able to read people exceptionally well over time. And I was far better at reading other people than I was myself. And so what I've now landed on is that self-awareness, I think, is an absolute superpower. And it's taken me a long time to delve into that space to truly understand myself. The whole journey from the head to the heart is the longest distance, but the journey most worth traveling, kind of thing.
I've never heard that. It's so good.
It's beautiful, huh?
Yeah, it's so good.
Inuit, I believe, quote.
Yeah.
And so, the journey inside is the most difficult, but the most rewarding. That's another one from someone different that I read. And so I think that if we had more self-awareness, to me, self-awareness is the awareness of the impact that you are having on the world around you. Like what footprint, what imprint am I making on the world? We would be living in a totally different world.
100%.
Interview on that? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the beauty of growing in self-awareness is your awareness of others as well, and when you find yourself in situations where you might be feeling yourself getting stressed or anxious or any of these emotions, and you have this awareness of it, when you are in a situation and the other person is having that, you have the ability to be like, oh, what is going on for you? Like there's a lot more to this than just like you in this moment. And then it gives you this level of grace, of understanding, of compassion, of connection. And it just like, it makes life so much more manageable and again, kind of takes the heat out of things, because you just have this level of observation that you're just like, that's funny that I did that. Like, there's this guy, Ram Dass, who's a beautiful, like, he's a real psychonaut and amazing kind of modern day philosopher. But he always talks about the idea of loving awareness, because there's awareness, but you can still have judgment with awareness. You could look at yourself and be like, what a fucking idiot. Why did I do that? And why am I, but then there's loving awareness where you look at yourself and you go, yeah, there I go, being anxious again, caring too much about money again, like you can just look at yourself with this real sense of just love. And that has this beautiful flow and effect into like having loving awareness with others as well, and with the situations you're in. And it really makes life a lot less charged,
Yes. Yeah. Lot less angsty.
Totally. Yeah.
So ongoing theory, we've talked a bit about what the structure and the ideology and the intention behind it is. Have you thought much about, and hopefully this episode is going to help that that cause, but have you thought much about how you can commercialize that?
Well, so there's a few different kind of offerings to it. There's working B2B with businesses to help with their, not just the people side of things, but actually the systems that create that alignment. And so something that I love within business is efficiency in systems. And so it's like, how do we make the people and the processes aligned and that they're firing on all cylinders? So that's really like a consultancy, coming into a business, working alongside them. There's also within that things like offsites and workshops where you can really jolt people out of their everyday and bring them into a state of awareness, crafting new patterns, behaviors, and kind of setting an intention essentially for how you are as a team and going forward. If you want to do a bigger deep dive, then I host retreats as well. Like I'm hosting one in 2 weeks with a bunch of interesting CEOs and entrepreneurs, and that's where you really kind of drop into that next layer, and you might do some of these breathwork experiences and stuff like that. And then on an individual level, I'm doing some kind of coaching as well, which is interesting because I've always been had such an aversion to that idea of coaches. And I think in New Zealand we really do, because this whole tall poppy thing. But you go to somewhere like the States and everyone's got a coach. So I'm trying to lean into that more and accept that that's probably the work that I'm in is coaching.
Yeah. And it truly is in service of another individual or a group of individuals, right? And so it is really deeply satisfying. A part of what I do is coaching. I've resisted it like you have and are. But the reality is if you understand the results and the impact that you can have, it's deeply satisfying.
Totally. And I had this realization one day where I was like, well, obviously the reason that I have this aversion to coaching is because there's a lot of really shit ones on the internet that are faux ones, but it's the same with every industry. Like, how many shit restaurants are there out there? You don't then write off restaurants,
I'm never eating out again.
Exactly, because of all these shit. It's like, there's good ones and there's bad ones. I think the superpower going forward in life in general with AI and everything is discernment, like you just have to it's just being able to discern, pick through the sand to find the sugar,
Yeah, I agree. Like taste making,
Totally.
The ability to have that. The other thing, Prof. Galloway, one of the people that I follow, super smart guy, and not afraid to call anything out at all, which is one of the reasons I like him, is that he talked about connection as being one of the most important things in the post-AI world, in the world that we live in now. I have a talk and a half or a full day thing, which is on establishing connection back in the business again. The whole remote distant work thing that we're doing and the lack of awareness of ourselves and others' needs, and then having intention moments around it.
Totally.
So yeah, and
that's kind of why I've stepped
doing.
into this business, because like I'm looking at trends going ahead, that idea of convergence, and being like, okay, well, the future demand is going to be people-centric things, because we're just like already at capacity with everything being digitized, and it's going to get even more so. And so like something I really want to do with teams is bring intention into how you show up as a team in this modern day. With post-COVID, we're still in reactive mode of how we're working, and how many calls, video calls you're doing a day where you're there's no reason you need to be looking at that person on the camera. You could be going for a walk and having that meeting, and the benefits of that would be profound, but we don't have the language or the culture to be able to set that within teams. And so what I want to help people do is to create a culture where they can have those conversations, where they can create clear boundaries, where they can know how to ask permission for what they want, where they can have curiosity to explore and experiment with different ways of working, and create that kind of that container to be able to craft with intention the actual desirable team that they want to be in.
Yeah. Changing gears.
Yeah.
So post-sale, you decided not just to exit the business, but exit home, and you've moved from Wellington up to
From
Lee.
Wellington to Lee.
Tell me more.
Well, so we just wanted to shake it up, and we wanted somewhere different to Wellington that was warm with beaches. And so we're thinking, north of Auckland, and then we had specific wants for, what we wanted out of a house. And so we weren't too locked into a location. And then this house came up in Lee, and I'd never been to Lee. But we were like, sure, lock it in. And then we'd already signed the rental agreement, and we rented first before buying. It was definitely wise. And then I was like, oh, go check it out. And I drove in. I was like, whoa, this is small.
It's pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a couple of hundred residences, I think.
No, it'd be more than that. I think there's 2,000 people there, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Bigger than I thought.
It's half of it's holiday homes, and it's beautiful there. And, the kids go to the school. There's 60 kids in the school. They love it. For some reason, when we moved up, Willoughby, my daughter, she lost her shoes, and she didn't own any shoes for 3 months. And we just didn't have a need to buy any, because she'd just go to school barefoot and she just live barefoot. It was great. So there's not many places that you can do that these days, and yeah, I don't think Lee is in my life forever, because I'm a raging extrovert. And, in Wellington, I had a sauna at my house, and I'd invite people over 3 to 4 times a week, and just have really saunas are great places for deep conversations. Everybody, they're half naked and really hot, and it's just all the kind of barriers are gone, and they'll just speak their truth.
Yeah, a bit of duress. I heard of someone that was doing or planning to do a podcast series in the sauna.
Oh yeah, well, my friend Damien does that. Damien Chaparro from Aroha, if you've heard of that retreat down in Glenorchy.
Okay.
Yeah, he does podcasts in a sauna.
I love it. Yeah.
But I'm missing that, there's not that many people in Lee who want to come over for a sauna. I mean, I haven't got the sauna yet, so I don't know if that's entirely true, but it's my ongoing theory.
So the other thing that you did along the way with the wrestler business in about 21 is, and this is a timing and a convergence thing as well, you started a Web3 business.
I did. Yeah. Raised a bunch of money for that.
Yeah.
It was really cool. So Kat and I, when we first met, we had this thing of I'd love to make a sci-fi fantasy world one day. And we both had that vision in our minds for some reason. And we're like, yeah, that'd be cool. And then when COVID happened, we started playing with what that world would look like. And we kind of took our passions, which is science and magic or spirituality, and put them together to create this world, Soul Ether, which was kind of playing in the world of quantum theory, which is essentially science and spirituality in my mind. And so created this awesome world of science, magic, and these cool characters. And then through Kat's part of EHF, Edmund Hillary Fellowship, and through that we had met this guy, Tom Staggs, who was the ex-COO of Disney. So kind of as high as you can get in Hollywood. And he really liked us, and he really liked the idea. And so he started mentoring us, and he was like, hey, you should raise some money for this, and I'll invest. And if someone like that says I'll invest, you should probably have a go, But what we created was this really cool concept, which we haven't seen before and still haven't seen yet, is this interconnected world of storytelling where you have cause and effect cross-platform. And so say you interact with the game, that will then have an impact on your experience of the animated series or on the comic book, or like things will shift based on user interaction, which means that story world becomes unique to you, which is a really cool concept.
It's a great idea. There was a Black Mirror series, which you picked your path. There was one episode, and it got a little bit confusing, as a lot of Black Mirror can do. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, but on across all these different platforms, right? The reason it hasn't been done before is because it's fucking hard. But one of the keys that unlocked that ability to hold somebody's identity through these different things and create cause and effect was, funnily enough, NFTs. It was like the actual technological function of NFTs worked really well for what we were trying to do. And so we're like, okay, well, let's leverage this craze of NFTs to also raise money off that market and use them as a function. And so that was the plan. That's what we were doing. Raise some money to kind of get that first NFT run built it. And just before we launched, like, the whole market crashed and the whole thing completely just fell over. And the whole business model was built on essentially leveraging the NFT community and market to then build another bigger market through like an animated series, and then keep kind of like expanding and leveraging. Because in the world of entertainment, to create original IP is so hard unless it has a proven audience. That's why you always see comic books becoming IP and stuff like that, because it's like it has an audience, or books and whatnot. So because we had nothing, it was just like it wasn't going to be a thing, and so we just had to go, okay, that didn't work.
Yeah. Janine Granger from Easy Crypto came on the show, and she was actually quoting Jovan Pavlicevic from Emerge, in that he said, you don't raise $12 million, you make 12 million promises. So what was it like to go to the investors and say, this thing isn't going to work, we're going to have to kind of pull the pin on it?
It was actually a really nice experience, because I had this feeling like through the whole time as things were getting bad, I was like, fuck, like friends had invested as well, and like people had given us a lot of money. And I told them from the very beginning, I was like, guys, this is a crazy investment. Like, this is a real outlandish thing, but like, we're trying to surf this giant wave. Let's see if we can do it, And so they all had that knowledge. It's not like I was selling like this was a sure thing, but I still felt really guilty about losing people's money, But what we did, once we got to a point, we had about 200K left in the bank, and we realized nothing was gonna kind of fix the situation. And so we went to our investors. We were like, look, we can give you like pennies in a dollar for what you put in, or we could put this back into crypto or whatever. Like, we gave them 3 options, and they were like, we'll take a fraction of the money back. And so, okay, so we returned a tiny amount of money to investors, and I think they really appreciated that, because we could have just like kept draining it out. So we did that, but then what happened was the visual. I always think in visuals. What it felt like is when you're in the start, you're climbing this ladder, right? Fuck, I gotta get to the top. You look around you, there's all these other people climbing their ladders, and you're like, fuck. And then you feel yourself about to fall, and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna fall. And all of that dread comes into you of like how bad it's gonna be, and how high you're gonna fall from, all this stuff. And then that's where most of the pain and suffering comes in, is the anticipation of the fall. When the fall itself happens, it happens very quickly. Yeah. And you hit the ground, you realize you were only actually a foot off the ground because you were sliding down the ladder the whole time. And you hit the ground, and then your next thought is, oh my God, everybody's going to be laughing at me, and they're going to be like just pointing and staring and calling me names or whatever, And you look up and nobody gives a fuck. They're all climbing their own ladder, and all you do is go, oh shit, I'm sorry to the people who, were investing in you and whatnot. And they go, it's okay. And then you dust yourself off and you climb back on your ladder and you start doing something different, And those are the people who are successful long term, because they just like, it's inevitable you're going to fall off your ladder, and you just got to like get back on, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, there's no failure, right? There's only learnings on the way to some form of success. So it's all framing anyway, regardless.
100%.
There's an expression which you'll no doubt be familiar with. Nothing is ever as good as it seems, or as bad as it seems. We just kind of, we sensationalize or catastrophize things completely unnecessarily. I can't remember who said this next thing, which is that to endlessly worry about something is to have two deaths. There's the death of the worry and the death of the event itself.
Totally.
Just back down to one thing, right?
Yeah.
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 And so you had the best of intentions. You had a plan that was working in a market space that was risky. You were clear about that risk. It didn't work. Yeah, you move on.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Great learnings.
Yeah. Yeah. Ben Forman with no E, Forman. People can hit you up on LinkedIn if they're really curious about ongoing theory and how that could play out. If they want to talk to you about how that could look for their business, then that's the right place to do it.
Totally.
I reckon what we should do in about 6-12 months' time or so is get back on the show and have a chat about what you've learned and how it's gone, because that'll be fascinating, because bringing consciousness, awareness, and the balance between mind, body, spirit, wellness, etc., into the workplace, professional workplace, it's been something people have talked about, and they've kind of like tried to chip away at it for like a good period of time, and unsuccessfully. And so I'm fascinated to see how this journey goes, and if I can support you in any way, just let me know, brother.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I too am very curious to see how it goes. I look forward to our chat in 12 months.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, great. Cool.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much, Josh.
Nice.
Awesome.
If you enjoy these episodes, I hope you do. I love filming them, and the guests always say what a great and often cathartic experience it is for them. Then please do like and share. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm open to connect requests, and occasionally I get emails from people as well asking me about my experience around certain subjects. So please do like and share, and continue to follow the show. I really appreciate your ears.